All right, well, let's get started. Again, welcome to the Barn Raiser Crowdfunding for Good Food and Healthy Living webinar. My name is Gina Jarmo and want to thank you for being here today. I am part of the Projects and Partnerships team along with Marie Sales, our Director of Community and Partnerships, and Allison Waddell, our Food and Culinary Director, who are joining us today and may jump in here and there. A little background about myself before we get started. I was raised in Northern California and by association was lucky to grow up learning about and really developing a passion for good food. And that really catalyzed while I was in school at UC Berkeley and became the food manager for a 150-person cooperative house and ended up developing profound relationships with our students and nutrition education and with our food producers and farmers. Most recently, I worked for the Good Food Awards, which is a nonprofit and a partner of Barn Raiser that works to celebrate and acknowledge and ultimately market good food artisans from around the country. And it's an honor to now be a barn raiser, where I continue to work with food producers and innovators, changing the way that our food system is functioning. So, Barn Raiser itself is a crowdfunding and social community dedicated to powering the good food movement by supporting food innovators, changing how we farm, eat, and live. So, we're interested in any and all projects moving us collectively towards a more healthy and sustainable world. We officially launched in September of 2014, and since then, we've had projects from all regions of the United States. Categories include food, farming, education, community, and media. And we'll go into those a little bit more later. But Barn Raiser serves as a community beyond crowdfunding and really holds space for trusted voices in the food movement to offer advice and share their stories. So there are a couple of different modes of crowdfunding that you may have heard of. So let's get a sense of where Barn Raiser fits in. Typically, a project or a venture that's raised from a large number of people is considered crowdfunding. And nowadays, that term is most associated with internet platforms, but school fundraisers, for instance, is also a really great example of crowdfunding. But with the internet now, the opportunities have expanded dramatically. Everyone's on social media, on their phones, online, checking their emails. So, crowdfunding now allows you to really tap into communicating to people via email and social media to really harness the energy of your crowd. Lending, Kiva Zip is a great example of a lending platform, and that is when a crowd contributes to a project, but the project is responsible to pay that money back in full. So, campaigns launched on Kiva Zip are reaching out to their communities to receive loans that they will ultimately pay back over a period of time. Equity funding, Slow Money and AgFunder are great examples, and their models tap into a qualified group of investors who contribute to your project in exchange for equity or partial ownership in your business or organization. Gift reward model. Others include Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and Barn Raiser, of course, is also a gift reward model. And we operate where our projects receive contributions from a crowd or a group of people in exchange for a gift or a straight donation or in exchange for a reward. So you don't need to pay that money back. If you raise $20,000, for instance, that money's yours. Your only obligation to backers is to fulfill the rewards offered in exchange for their contribution. So, jumping into our types of projects, our first category is farming, and that includes farmers, ranchers, anything to do with agriculture itself. Here are some of our two favorite farmers, Elizabeth and Cody of 5 Foot Farm, and they raised over $7,000 to buy a new walking tractor for their small farm in Quincy, California. Food is another huge category for us. Campaigns include small artisanal makers, brewers, larger, more established brands. The list really goes on. Kitchen Witch Bone Broth, pictured here, for instance, raised over $19,000 to purchase new equipment to have the capacity to distribute bone broth via direct sales, farmers markets, and most recently, Whole Foods. Education includes school gardens, nutrition education programs, farmer training, incubator farms, universities, etc. This is Ben Eichhorn, a beloved garden teacher from the Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley, who launched a Grow Your Lunch campaign and raised over $13,000 to produce and distribute a free Top 10 Tips for Budding Gardeners handbook. Community, that includes urban farms, community gardens, anything that's gathering a community, of course, around food. And here is part of the Foraged Farm team from Denver, Colorado, who raised over $5,000 to buy a new truck so they could deliver excess and perfectly good food from the farmers market to their local pantries and food banks. Media includes magazines, documentary films, blogs, apps, cookbooks, anything really helping to celebrate from an advocacy or informational point of view. So why barn raiser? We've gone through a few other, crowdfunding platforms. Barn raiser connects you, the user, the innovator, to a wider audience of good food supporters. People visit our site because they believe in and really want to support good food. And across the United States, we found that around 41 million Americans align themselves with health and sustainability. And those people are looking to rally around champions of the food movement. So we're making that connection through press, social media, our sponsors, and our general audience. And because our audience is so focused and connected, our 65% success rate is double that of other crowdfunding platforms' food-related projects. The typical barn raiser raise is between $5,000 and $25,000, and our average campaigns raise about $12,000. And again, that's just about 2 to 3 times as much as the average food and ag-related projects on other platforms. So that 65% success rate directly relates to the high level of attention and support from the barn raiser team throughout your campaign experience. Your project won't be one of 50,000 on a site with an unfocused audience. It's really our job to provide a platform that drives additional exposure to innovators like you changing our food system. So, because of that, our team itself is comprised of former nutrition educators, chefs, gardeners, food producers, restaurateurs. The list really goes on. So, Barn Raiser was founded by food people for food people. So you'll receive personal advice from a team with years of experience in the good food and farming world. We're personally invested in your success. You're also guaranteed strong homepage placement and social media support. And we act as advisors, editors, and we like to say cheerleaders. We're really on your team throughout the whole process. So there are obvious benefits to crowdfunding itself, and it can perfectly fit in to the needs of your business. A few examples from past projects include Emily Robbins over on the left, founder of Goldilocks Goodies, who raised $2,000 for her gluten-free baking company to get her small business out of her home kitchen and into a commissary kitchen. So smaller raise, but it ended up being just right for her growth. Swallowtail Farm in the middle is a CSA from Florida, and they raised $35,000 to build a micro creamery from a shipping container and purchase a veggie oil delivery truck. The Green Bronx Machine, last but not least, raised over $39,000 to build a vertical garden and health and wellness center in the Bronx and bring nutrition education to their urban community. So specific benefits include speed and flexibility. Crowdfunding itself supports many types of organizations, whether it's not-for-profit, for-profit, individual makers, farmers, etc. You set your own funding goal. Our minimum starts at $2,000, but we don't have a maximum, and we can help you determine ballpark numbers around an attainable goal, and we'll also go into it a little bit more later. Crowdfunding as a campaign can have a turnaround is of much of a few weeks of planning before launch to a few months. But really, you set the timing in a way that works best for your needs and your ability to push the project forward. You're building awareness. Crowdfunding requires and gives you this incredible opportunity to clarify your ask and the platform to tell your own story and really spread it beyond your existing community. It's also a profound opportunity to pre-sell your product. And this easily applies to farms and food products, but for other things as well. We've had projects pre-sell tickets to their events. And one of our past campaigns, Local Food Shift Magazine in Colorado, pre-sold subscriptions to their magazine, among other things. It also allows you through pre-sales to have more capital and less worry. So you're pre-selling a CSA subscription, for instance, while you're raising capital to invest in your business. So just like a CSA, you're pre-selling it and getting that money up front, and then you're divvying out the product over the coming months or year. Crowdfunding also really expands your community and opportunities. You're building a customer base and your community simultaneously by tapping into your current supporters and expanding the network that will allow you to grow down the road and really creates that exposure you need to forge new partnerships, distributors, or other funders. And we see this with many of our campaigns. 3 months down the road, for instance, someone will come through and offer a grant or a donation or come on as a new client. And because it's a public event, unlike private fundraising, it's occurring in that public sphere and really bolsters your community long after your campaign. We often look at crowdfunding as a slice of the pie. It's often a valuable asset and accent to your overall funding needs. And really, it's something that can be fit into your fundraising plans for the next few years. It may be that you're going to seek investors at some point. It may be that you need entry level dollars and you plan to come back to crowdfunding again next year. It's an incredibly helpful asset and aspect to your overall funding needs. So with that, let's jump into the meat of our webinar today. We've had a number of successful projects that we'll talk about and highlight, and they all share a few keys to their crowdfunding success. So let's dive in. Key number one, tell your story. This is Nigel Walker of Eat Well Farm, and he's actually Marie Sales, our Director of Projects and Partnerships, own CSA farmer. And Nigel raised over $23,000 to launch a chicken breeding facility on his farm that does not kill male chicks, which is quite common, and also essentially eliminated his need to purchase from hatcheries in general, ultimately making his eggs truly local. So all of his chickens, including the roosters, live out on a large pasture. The roosters eventually used for meat and the hens for their delicious eggs. And that's rare. And as he says in his incredibly touching video, I highly recommend you check it out, that his goal is to make humane, sustainable farming the norm. So his project appealed to the larger farming community through a partnership that he actually established with UC Davis's ag department and can be used as a model for other farms. So his campaign appealed directly to his CSA members, including Marie, from a humanitarian point of view and a wider audience in general. So the story was picked up through a local radio station around the humane treatment of animals. So he was able to craft a very personal story, broaden it, and tell an even more compelling story to a wider audience. So drawing from Nigel's campaign, make it personal and share your passion. If you visit his page, you can really hear his passion for his birds, both in his video and right on the page. So find every opportunity to really tug at your audience's heartstrings and share your heart. You know, we all know, our entire team and you as well, that choosing a career in the good food movement is chosen primarily for passion and not to get rich quick. So really explore all of those passionate and interesting parts of your own story and really anything that can draw more attention to your cause, like Nigel was able to do with the humane treatment of these chicks. Share the bigger picture. Talk about your next steps and how your project can impact a wider network, just as Nigel did when he was opening up the conversation around increasing the demand for humanely raised meat. And show your face and make the ask. Nigel was right there on the video. He was making phone calls, sending out updates and emails all throughout the campaign. And the reason why your audience is so interested in supporting your project and watching your campaign succeed is because they support you and they want to hear from you throughout the duration of your campaign. Another great example is Kitchen Witch Bone Broth, and we met them earlier today. They raised over $19,000 for their bone broth company by not only telling the story of their company and their specific needs for growth, but the incredible health benefits of the bone broth they make and sharing how they're reusing bones from meat farms and other specifics of their business that you wouldn't otherwise know from just picking up one of their jars off of the shelf in a grocery store. Our next key to success is finding your community. We all know that this is called crowdfunding, but that word crowd often feels big. So we've really started to refer to it as community funding, since the dollars and energy that really shine through come from your local community. So it's really essential to find your audience. And your audience is basically everyone you know in the universe and anyone who you think would be interested in funding and supporting your success. And we all need to do this anyway to see our business thrive. So, crowdfunding is a really valuable way to launch a big marketing and promotional campaign. These are folks who you know, your friends, your family, your current customers, and people you don't yet know, friends of friends, potential new customers, and a general audience. We find that the closer they are to you, the more likely they are to take action, spread the word, and pledge to your campaign. It is important to note that on all crowdfunding websites across the board, an average of two-thirds of your funding will come from your immediate community, and the other third might come from outside of your network. And that very well may be the extended barn raiser community or through social media. So if you're hearing this and you feel like you really need to increase your audience or currently have a smaller amount of customers to make a large impact, build a team. And this is helpful regardless of your audience size, too. It's always helpful to have multiple people with you as advisors, supporters, and just overall help managing your campaign. So, really look for natural partnerships and establish them before the start of your campaign. So, if you're selling a product, for instance, and there's a related product or a business that you deal with regularly, you sell bread, pictured here, for instance, find that olive oil or butter company that's next to you at the farmer's market and see if they're willing to share their email list with you and support your outreach efforts during your campaign. Also, look at any involvement you have in your local and regional community and who else would benefit from the project. Are there restaurants, other local farms, farmers market associations, really anyone interested in spreading the word? As far as building a team for a campaign, designate specific roles to friends and find that core group who might be able to help you. Find someone to be a temporary project manager. Consider hiring or finding a volunteer intern for the duration of your campaign. The Chicken Bridge Bakery team, pictured here, and their children did a fantastic job of cultivating a network through friends. They essentially had a potluck with a circle of 10 friends and invited them to join on as a circle of advisors for the campaign. And they committed to reaching out to their extended networks once the campaign went live. And because their close friends were also in the food movement, their friends' extended networks really found value in what they were doing because they had their own personal connection and values around supporting artisanal grains and local food. And then reach out. How do you reach out? Well, we find that email is queen because it's way more convenient for your backers to click and pledge immediately. So if you have an email list, typically around 5 to 10% of that list will actually pledge around $75. And while that may not sound like a lot, focusing your energy on like we said, on finding those partnerships who may have extensive mailing lists. And keep in mind, this includes your team's personal lists as well. So your 300 people can turn into 1,000 people, which will turn into 100 backers. Facebook and other social media tools are also valuable and will definitely support your campaign. One of our funded projects, Willamette Valley Cook Space in Republic of Jam, posted to social media daily in their last week, and it helped them out quite a bit. However, we find that numbers are much lower as far as converting to backers, and you have to commit to using Facebook extremely regularly to really see those results and potentially pay to boost ads. So, really, we tell our campaigns to focus most of their outreach efforts on email. So, how do you start getting that together? Well, today you add an email sign up box on the homepage of your website that advertises your upcoming campaign. You add a sign up sheet in your store or at the farmer's market or anywhere that you're interacting face to face with your community. And then, of course, get on Facebook or Twitter and start adding friends. But this is an accent of time compared to your overall email outreach. So once you set your email list, you got to keep asking and tapping into your network throughout your campaign. Many of our projects have a great deal of credibility and larger email lists, but they found that you really have to ask people multiple times to get people to actually pull out their credit cards and make a contribution. So no, you are not bugging your audience by reaching out multiple times. They want to hear from you. The more the better, actually. And we've never really heard of an audience member complaining about that. They really just need that extra check in or to get an email when their wallet happens to be right next to them. So reach out and let them know what you're up to throughout your campaign. Our extra tip of the day is find 10 backers to pledge on the first day, as with Chicken Bridge Bakery, because it's way easier to ask your friends on the first day than to remind them on week 2 or 3 that they've yet to make a contribution. Setting a realistic goal is a really important key here. We have two great examples. Lawrence Butler of Daddy's Local Market in Nebraska on the left was initially unsure about reaching his ideal goal of $15,000. So, what he did was he set a smaller goal of six for his first campaign, got his feet wet, and became really familiar with how to run a successful campaign, and gained such incredible momentum that he turned around and added part two, a whole second campaign, where he was able to raise that additional $8,000. So, in the end, he raised $15,000, but in two segments. And he did that because we are what's called a tilt model. So you must hit your minimum goal to get funded. So we suggest that you organize your campaign by dividing it into two parts where you have that minimum and attainable goal in place, but you also set a stretch goal or that ideal amount of money you need to really solidify your dream. So once you tilt and you still have time left, change all of the language on your page to focus on your stretch goal. And we're more than happy to talk you through that individually. And this doesn't have to happen in two campaigns. This can happen in one. Fire Tongue Farm on the right here, for instance, had a smaller, tight-knit community to raise money for their pepper farm. And ideally, they needed $10,000, but they weren't so sure about their backer turnout. So they set their goal to $3,000 and their stretch goal to 10 and blew it out of the water after 24 hours, raised $3,500 in one day. So they changed everything on their page to focus on reaching their stretch goal, and they made it to $9,625, which is just a few hundred shy. But Levon also told me that a $400 check showed up in his mailbox the day after his campaign completed. So I like to say that they reached their stretch goal, and this is a really great example of fundraising in that public sphere. So you have a more concise, concrete opportunity to continue to raise money long after your campaign has closed, like Levon was able to receive $400 post campaign. So, really make your goal attainable. And that's based off of both your proposed budget and the size of your community. So, set your goal based off of how many people you think you reach. And then take that 5 to 10% of your email list, say, and go off that to start. So, for example, you have 2,000 people on your mailing list. And if 5% of those donate, that's about 100. And people contribute generally around $75. So, with that audience of 2,000 people from your mailing list, you've got an attainable goal of around $7,500. And then take that number and look at your budget and see if you can find a comfortable spot in between. So once you have that goal figured out, activate your network. Check in, like we said, via email predominantly, and of course on social media, but don't be afraid to pick up the phone and give your supporters a call. Having events, distributing flyers, putting up a big sign at the market in your store, putting a sticker on your products, advertising your campaign, really anything that gets you promoting your project and adding dollars to your campaign is helpful. And then stretch and dream. Set that comfortable minimum goal and then really look at what it would mean to raise $5, $10, $20,000 and over. Planning is a very important component of a successful project. The more you plan before, the more prepared you will be during the campaign, and the more you'll be able to raise in the long run. And we've established really easy to use tools and a dashboard that give you a daily checklist of to-dos for each stage of your campaign so that you really feel secure and supported throughout the whole process. And learn from others. Check out other successful campaigns and look at their updates and rewards and videos and the language around their project goals to really get a sense of what a funded campaign looks like. Pledge $5 to a current project on the site and feel what it's like to be a backer in that whole experience so you can receive updates and see how other projects are communicating and what happens when they hit their campaign goal. And then your outreach really starts now. As mentioned before, an average of 20 to 30% of your audience might find you through Barnraiser, but really your effort is what starts that momentum. That average of 70% might come directly from your network and their friends. So your community really needs to hear about your campaign as quickly as possible. So you want to be thinking about emails now and thinking about ways to plan for that. People often reference examples of projects going viral. And these projects really build momentum with planning and effort. And really, a very small amount of projects actually go viral. And they do that by planning far, far in advance. Flow Hive, for instance, many of you may know, raised $12 million for a beehive on tap. And they were probably in planning mode for years before their campaign went live. And they probably had over 50,000 people who were ready to pledge immediately. But that said, we've seen many successful campaigns launch a month into the process and they learn how to reach out to their extended community. And we can make that process as easy as possible for you. So, another key component of crowdfunding is giving great rewards. We really believe that rewards are what draw a lot of backers in and really gives people a tangible way to feel connected to your business. And most of you are probably already selling something, and that's a great opportunity to get your product into the hands of people. So create rewards that reflect your business or your expertise. They should appeal to a wide range of people, both local and national. But as opposed to just a contribution, really look at it as marketing and promoting your business or your organization or your idea, of course, directly to a customer base. We like to say that there are 4 ways to give that we think about: thanks, swag, recognition, and experience. So, a thanks can be sending a card, a thank you, a call out on social media. Swag is an item, a t shirt, a food product, a video, a trinket, a subscription. Giving recognition can be a name on a site or a donor wall, naming rights or a sponsorship. And giving an experience can be a restaurant meal or a farm tour or a class or consulting. And with these rewards, go small and go big. You know your audience better than we do, and we always say that you know what your audience's ability to give is. So have a range of rewards from, say, starting at $5, $10, or $15, going all the way up to 100 or 500 or 1,000. And the rewards should be set at reasonable values, so don't expect to double the values of your goods for your campaign. And you can kind of get around that by just getting creative. So think of bundling your rewards by adding items to a gift basket not otherwise offered on your site, or adding in a ticket or a t shirt or a trinket to make it feel particularly special. Rewards that sponsor something that you're already doing in your community, like garden tours or scholarships, that actually underwrite your costs, can be a really powerful way to draw people into your campaign itself. So make sure your rewards are easy to fulfill, like a t shirt or a phone call. You really don't want to break the bank. So figure out and factor in how much money you'll make on top of delivering the rewards and factoring in shipping costs. So, a few great examples for you. To the top left is Swallowtail Farm, and they sold a tote bag. Their big selling push was this adorable baby, and it was filled with treats and products from their farm, baby not included. T-shirts should not be overlooked. Lomax Farm had a t-shirt made by a local producer, and they sold over 100 of those throughout the duration of their campaign. Again, Kitchen Witch Bone Broth, who we've now met a few times, they sold a year's worth of bone broth delivered. And that was really considerable savings, but since it was pre-sales for them, it really enabled them to get the money in advance in order to purchase equipment. And they sold 5 of these. So that's $10,000 of the 19 they collected. So a little bit more than half of their whole raise. And like we mentioned, use an experience you may already be offering. Yountville School Garden sold 4 $200 garden tours, an $800 contribution to their $10,000 campaign. So, our last big tip, though you'll uncover more detailed ones in your dashboard and in conversations with me, Allison, and Marie of the project team, is to be fearless with the ask. Crowdfunding is asking people to join you, to participate in your business in a really meaningful way. And that goes simply beyond asking for money or for a contribution. And it's really that give and get relationship. People back your campaign because they want to support your business or your organization, and they also want the reward itself. So speak up. You are, as we've mentioned before, your biggest cheerleader and really are the best person to tell your own story. So get the word out and ask people to help. And you really have to be willing to be the spokesperson for your campaign. And you want to get your whole team on board. This is Bovine Bakery team, and they're in Petaluma, California. Everyone who was involved was sending out emails and encouraging their friends to participate and were a valuable part of the process. If you have a board of directors, for instance, get all of them together and commit them to both being backers and to reach out to their networks throughout the campaign. And be direct. We get this every so often, so I have to mention it, predominantly with our wonderful farmers who are worried that crowdfunding is a handout and they do all the work themselves and they don't want to ask for handouts. But crowdfunding is really a give and get exchange. It's those CSA subscriptions and other products, as we went over. And you're promoting your business and selling product or experiences through the crowdfunding campaign. So if you have folks who told you in the past that they would be willing to help your business with a cash donation, now is the time to make that call. We often have what we call an Uncle Henry who says, when you get your business together, I'm happy to help you fund it. And you know he has a lot of money and you're afraid of when to ask for that. Well, now's the time. And you want to be celebratory and proud of what you do and have fun and be playful. Take a look at Willamette Valley Cookspace Republic of Jam's collaborative project, for instance, passing on a legacy and building a new one. They posted as they were nearing the end of their campaign and throughout videos and memes of Kermit the Frog screaming yay and hilarious and informational updates around where they were in their funding goal. And you can really feel the passion they have for their business and the excitement they have around getting their audience excited about supporting them. As a backer myself, I had so much fun and was so excited whenever I got an update from them in my inbox that I even increased my contribution. And we do often see spikes in contributions right after a project has sent out an update or an email. So, again, don't be afraid to speak up and be direct. Your audience wants to hear from you. And finally, don't give up. The Butchers Guild is a great example. They sent tweets and Facebook posts to every single person who backed their project, and they were able to raise 140% of their initial funding goal, which they credit to their outreach efforts. So, just a quick recap before we wrap up of our keys to success. Tell a compelling story, really find those passionate aspects of your experience and find ways to get that to your network and your community. Find your community. These are friends, current customers, and family members, and also friends of friends, potential partners, and other organizations that may be willing to help you spread the word. Set the right goal. Take that 5 to 10% of your mailing list and multiply it by 75 to really kind of get that attainable goal to start. And then, of course, stretch and dream. You raise every penny after you reach your tilt goal. So the sky is really the limit. Give great rewards. Look at a thanks, swag, recognition, and experience, and really look at how you can tap into your experience and your offerings, as well as giving your backers an interaction or an experience with your products themselves. And be fearless with the ask. This is an opportunity to give your backers and customers a really wonderful connection to you and your business and your products. So be celebratory and proud of what you do. This is a way for people to be a part of your growth, and it's an exciting thing to be a part of. Campaign details, just again before we wrap up, setup, planning, and timing. We've seen people set up a campaign within a few weeks or a few months. It really just depends on your organization. The page itself is really easy to set up and can be done in a couple of days without a lot of stress. The length of the campaigns generally lasts from 30 days to 60, and it can be less or more. It's really dependent on your organization and your timing and how that works for your business as far as the time you're able to commit to reaching out. Barn Raiser fee structure. We are a for-profit organization and we take a 5% fee for using the platform and for our overall support. And then there's a credit card processing fee that runs between 4 and 5%. So you can estimate if you raise $10,000, you're going to get $9,000 straight into your checking account if you succeed. We do not take any fees off of campaigns that do not reach their goals. And how to get started. Really by being here today, you already have. And we have everything on our website to take you through building a draft, which we'll talk about next. So next steps, prepare your project. Simply go to barnraiser.us and you'll find a create button at the top of your screen. Really, you just need to start filling out our modal, and that'll take you straight into the draft where you can build your page. And you start building buzz. You're gathering those emails, you're putting together your lists, you're telling everyone you know about your upcoming campaign and all of the exciting plans you have in store, and getting your circle of advisors and teams together and really generating that excitement. And lastly, getting funded. We've had a wonderful variety of successful barn raisers, some who we have not met yet. Carol Morrison is actually the industrial poultry farmer that was highlighted in Food Inc., who raised $15,000 to go free range. We've met Daddy before from Daddy's Local Market. Chef Holly Green from Joy Foodly raised $20,000 to bring cooking classes into schools and homes. And Cloud9 Rooftop Farm in Philadelphia raised $5,000 to build a fence around their existing rooftop garden so that senior citizens could safely use the space and be a part of their gardening program. So, with that, I'd love to open it up to questions. There is a space to ask questions to the right of your screen. And I'll wait for them to roll in with just a few announcements. We are so excited to wrap up this end of 2015 in the last 2 weeks with a 50% off barn raiser fee offer for all campaigns that launch between now and December 31st. So please feel free to go to barnraiser.us/create and get started on your draft. I will also be sending out an email following this webinar with that 50% offer and a recording and a slide deck for you to review at your leisure. But as always, we are more than happy to check in via phone or to edit your draft. We also have another part of our webinar series. This is the first of 3 webinars. So the next one will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and that will cover how to really tap into your audience beyond what we talked about today. So really learning how to utilize social media and email outreach to really get a crowd bolstered for your launch. We do have a question from Fiona. Fiona asks, how long can you build your campaign online before you launch it? Can you save it and work on it until you're ready to launch? Wonderful question, and absolutely, Fiona, thank you so much for asking. The draft is meant to be just that. It is a place for you to work on your message and prepare your campaign until you get it ready for launch. So that can be up to a few months for a year or a few weeks. It's really, what your timeline looks like, and you are more than willing or more than welcome to save and come back to it and receive information and feedback from us along the way. Another question, Michael Moss. What do you see as the most successful campaigns for farms? Expansion, capital campaigns for equipment, for specific equipment, startup? Great question, Michael. We've seen a variety of campaigns from general upstart, as with Fire Tongue Farm, who we met earlier, to purchasing money for a tractor, to just costs in general. It's always helpful in your campaign itself to really talk about the story behind your farm and to jot down your general budget. So if it is just for, operating costs, to really kind of make a rough budget within your campaign that help your backers and your communities see how they're contributing to your project. It's often helpful to have a specific ask or a specific focus. For instance, raising money for a walking tractor, as with 5 Foot Farm, or raising money for a micro creamery, as with Swallowtail. But really, upstart costs are wonderful as long as you tell about the story of the farm and its next steps for growth. We see a lot of traction in general with your community and beyond. Melina, what are the tax implications for funds raised this way? That is a great question. Contributions are tax deductible. And since we are a third party service, that is something that you need to look into for your business or organization. Ben Eichhorn is a great example of how he worked out that situation on his campaign page. So he allowed all contributions above $100 or something like that, I'll have to look into it, be eligible for a tax deduction. So this is something that your contributors could write off as a tax deduction for contributing to your campaign. It would have to subtract the reward amount, however. Really great questions. Thank you so much for checking in today. I really appreciate your time. Oh, sorry, I didn't see this. Melina McCall, do they count as income for us? It depends on how you structure your rewards. So once the rewards are deducted for the overall amount, that can count as donations. It does matter depending on how your organization itself is set up. So, Melina, I'm more than happy to check in with you on that individually. And thank you so much for your questions today. I really appreciate. Oh, can you please repeat barn raisers fees? The baby was talking. Thank you so much, Devin, for checking in. I'm more than happy to repeat. Hopefully, your baby is very happy. Yes, so Barn Raiser is a for-profit organization. So we do take 5% off of all successful campaigns. So 5% of your total raise. And then there's a 4 to 5% credit card processing fee on top of that that goes to the credit card company. Again, we do not take any fee off of unsuccessful campaigns, though we do spend quite a bit of time working with you to make sure that you are setting an attainable goal and will be able to reach that number. Well, that looks like that's it. If you have a question before we sign off that you didn't quite get out in this question period, again, I will be sending out an email with a recording to this webinar and a slide deck to review at your leisure. And more than happy to check in over the phone or via email to talk through next steps. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to helping you raise money for your Good Food and Healthy Living project. Hope to talk to you soon.